When you really want to understand a woman's character, the first, perhaps the most revealing thing you can observe is how she treats people who can do absolutely nothing for her. This is where the mask of charm and social politeness falls away, because there's no incentive, no benefit, no personal gain attached to the interaction. It's one thing to be pleasant and generous when there's a deal to be made, a friendship to maintain, or a romance to pursue. But the truth of a person's nature is uncovered in the moments when no one is watching, no one is keeping score, and no personal advantage is at stake. If she can look into the eyes of a stranger and see a human being worthy of dignity, then you are witnessing something rare. Think about the settings where this is most visible. The waiter who forgets the order, the cleaner quietly working in the background, the driver who's late because of traffic. These are moments where patience and empathy are tested. Some people only show respect to those they feel are on their level or above them. But a woman's real character has no hierarchy in her kindness. She doesn't measure worth by status, appearance, or wealth. Her kindness isn't calculated, it's natural. She greets the security guard with the same warmth she gives her closest friend. She thanks the grocery clerk as though they've done her a personal favor. And she does it without fanfare, without the need for recognition, because to her, decency isn't a performance, it's a way of life. We live in a world where a lot of people are transactional. They give only when they can get. That's why this trait stands out so much. When a woman goes out of her way to show respect and kindness to someone who has nothing tangible to offer her in return, she's revealing the foundation of her character. It tells you that her values are not dictated by circumstance. She doesn't need an audience to behave well. She doesn't need applause to be generous. She treats people as people, not as stepping stones or obstacles. Watch closely in group settings. It's easy to be charming to the person at the head of the table, but what about the one clearing the plates? Does she smile at them? Does she say thank you with sincerity, not as a reflex? Or does she ignore them as if they're invisible? You'll learn more about a person's heart in those small, quiet interactions than in any grand speech about morality. There's a depth to this principle too. The way she treats those beneath her in power or influence will eventually be the way she treats those closest to her when the power dynamic shifts. In relationships, in business, in family, there will be moments where she has the advantage and you do not. If she can handle that moment with grace when it's a stranger, she's far more likely to handle it with grace when it's you. Conversely, if she's dismissive, impatient, or condescending to someone who can't benefit her, that's a signal you can't afford to ignore. And here's the thing, it's not just about politeness. Politeness can be fake. True kindness is consistent. You'll see it in her body language, in the way she listens, in the way she acknowledges another person's humanity. Does she lean in and make eye contact when someone speaks, even if they speak slowly or struggle to find their words? Does she notice the effort someone is making, no matter how small, and affirm it with appreciation? These are signs of empathy that go beyond surface level manners. It's also worth noting that this kind of character doesn't appear overnight. It's built through a lifetime of choices, through lessons learned, and often through hardship. Someone who has known what it's like to be overlooked will rarely overlook others. Someone who has been dismissed unfairly will often go out of their way to make others feel seen. This is why watching how a woman interacts with those who have no leverage over her is so powerful. It's like looking at the blueprint of her life's lessons and values. In many ways, this is the purest test because there's no external reward system for treating people well in these situations. She's not being evaluated. She's not getting ahead in her career by saying thank you to the janitor. She's not securing a social connection by smiling at the street vendor. She's doing it because it's who she is, because somewhere deep inside, she's decided that every person deserves dignity, regardless of what they offer her in return. This is the kind of detail most people overlook because they're busy being impressed by charm, beauty, or wit. But those qualities can be turned on and off like a light switch. Kindness without agenda, however, is like a current running through a person's life. You can sense it in every interaction. And it doesn't just reveal how she will treat strangers. It foreshadows how she will treat you when the day comes that you have nothing to give her except yourself. If you watch closely enough, you'll see that the smallest moments often reveal the biggest truths. A simple thanks and thank you, spoken with genuine warmth, might seem trivial, but it's a reflection of something much larger. The belief that people matter simply because they're people. And when a woman carries that belief in her daily interactions, she's not just showing you courtesy, she's showing you her soul. If you really want to see what's beneath the surface of someone's personality, watch how they act when life tells them no. Pay attention to the way a woman responds when she doesn't get her way, when the outcome isn't in her favor, or when her expectations are met with disappointment instead of fulfillment. This is one of the clearest windows into her true character, because frustration strips away the polished exterior. It removes the practiced smiles, the well-rehearsed charm, and reveals the raw, unfiltered truth of who she is when control slips out of her hands. In moments of ease, anyone can appear patient, gracious, and composed. But when plans fall apart, when someone else makes a decision she disagrees with, or when a door she thought was open slams shut in her face, that's when her emotional discipline, her maturity, and her values either rise to the surface or vanish altogether. You're not just seeing her reaction to an inconvenience. You're seeing the framework of her inner life. Some women respond to disappointment with dignity. They pause, breathe, and assess the situation before letting emotions take over. They may still feel frustrated because frustration is human, but they channel it in ways that don't cause harm. They might express their feelings honestly, but without cruelty. They might look for lessons in the setback instead of turning it into an excuse for blame or resentment. These reactions don't happen by accident. They come from years of practicing self-control, from learning that you can't control the world. You can control how you respond to it. On the other hand, some allow disappointment to unleash a storm. The calm demeanor fades, replaced by sharp words, sarcasm, or anger. Minor inconveniences are blown out of proportion. They may resort to passive-aggressive behavior, making sure everyone around them feels their displeasure. These reactions can reveal entitlement, the belief that the world owes them outcomes that match their desires. And when those desires aren't met, they feel justified in lashing out. Think about the little tests life constantly provides. The wrong coffee order, a delayed flight, a last-minute cancellation. None of these situations are catastrophic, but they create a gap between expectation and reality. That gap is where true character shows up. If a woman can navigate those moments with grace, without making the people around her feel small or uncomfortable, she's telling you a lot about her resilience and emotional intelligence. This isn't about perfection. No one responds flawlessly to every setback. It's about patterns. Watch her over time. Does she consistently choose patience over impulsive reactions? Does she handle losing an argument with the same grace she shows when winning one? Does she find solutions instead of dwelling endlessly on the problem? People can fake kindness in good times, but it's incredibly difficult to fake grace under pressure for long. It's also worth noticing what her frustration targets. Does she direct her disappointment at the people trying to help her, or does she separate the problem from the person? For example, if a restaurant is out of her favorite dish, does she take it out on the server, someone who has no control over the situation, or does she simply choose something else and move on? That distinction matters needs some whether her ego needs someone to blame, or whether she understands that not every setback is personal. Another layer to this is her ability to adapt. Life rarely unfolds exactly as planned. Plans change, people cancel, opportunities disappear. A woman who can pivot gracefully in his moments is demonstrating flexibility, an essential trait for navigating both relationships and life in general. She knows that disappointment is not the enemy. It's an invitation to grow, to see things from a different angle, to practice patience, or to discover an unexpected path forward. There's also a connection between how a woman handles disappointment and how she views gratitude. If she can still be thankful for what she has, even when she didn't get what she wanted, it shows a deeper understanding that her happiness isn't tied to perfect conditions. That kind of mindset makes her more resilient because she's not constantly riding the emotional roller coaster of unmet expectations. Some people believe that power reveals character, but the truth is power and disappointment both do. Power shows you what someone will do when they have control. Disappointment shows you who they are when they have none. When you watch a woman face a situation she cannot change, you're watching her confront the limits of her control. And in that confrontation, her values are laid bare. It's easy to overlook these moments if you're only paying attention to the big gestures, but the small tests are where the truth hides. You don't need a major life crisis to see someone's character. You just need to see how they handle the little things that don't go their way. The tone in her voice when she's told, no, the expression on her face when someone disagrees with her, the way she talks about a lost opportunity. These aren't just reactions, they're reflections of her worldview. A woman who can meet disappointment without bitterness, who can remain respectful even when she feels wronged, who can pause before she speaks in frustration. That's a woman who has mastered something many never will. It's not about suppressing emotions, it's about guiding them. It's about choosing to protect her integrity even when her ego wants revenge or recognition. And that choice, repeated over and over again, forms a kind of inner strength you can trust. If you want to understand someone's true moral foundation, pay close attention to their relationship with truth. This isn't about the obvious, large-scale lies that are easy to spot. It's about the subtler moments, the small decisions that reveal whether honesty is a core value or merely a convenience. A woman's relationship with truth is a mirror of her self-respect, her integrity, and her understanding of trust. You can watch it in how she communicates, in the way she handles uncomfortable situations, and in whether she chooses accuracy over comfort, even when the truth isn't flattering or easy. It's tempting to believe that truth is simply about not telling lies, but it goes far deeper. It's about alignment between what she says, what she does, and what she believes. If her words and actions consistently match, that's a sign she values honesty, not just as a principle, but as a personal standard. But when there's a gap, when she says one thing to your face and another behind your back, or when her promises evaporate the moment they become inconvenient, you're seeing a disconnection between her public self and her real self. That disconnection will eventually erode trust. One of the most revealing scenarios is how she handles truth when it carries a cost. It's easy to be honest when the truth makes you look good or earns you praise. The real test comes when the truth could lead to criticism, embarrassment, or even conflict. Does she alter details to protect her image? Does she omit facts that might change how people see her? Or does she have the courage to be transparent? Knowing that honesty might make things harder in the short term, but stronger in the long run. Watch her in conversations where the truth is inconvenient. Maybe she made a mistake at work. Maybe she missed a commitment. Maybe she forgot something important. Does she own it directly, or does she craft an excuse that shifts the blame elsewhere? The difference here is monumental. Taking responsibility shows a deep respect for truth and for the people she's dealing with. Making excuses reveals a tendency to prioritize self-protection over integrity. Her relationship with truth will how she talks about others. If she repeats stories that are exaggerated or unverified, even for the sake of entertainment, it shows she treats truth as flexible, something to bend for her own narrative. But if she's careful not to misrepresent others, if she chooses accuracy even when gossip could make her more popular, that's a sign she respects truth as something sacred. It's also worth noticing how she reacts when someone else is honest with her, especially if the truth is hard to hear. Does she become defensive, immediately pushing back against the reality presented to her? Or does she take a moment to process, even if it stings? Being able to receive truth grace is just as important as being able to give it. It means she values reality over ego, growth over comfort. Truth is also about consistency. Anyone can have an honest moment, but integrity is built on repeated honesty over time. You'll know her relationship with truth by whether you feel you can rely on her words without hesitation. When she says she'll be somewhere, will she actually show up? When she promises confidentiality, will she keep it? When she gives her opinion, is it truly hers? Or is it tailored to what she thinks you want to hear? There's another subtle but important layer. Self-honesty. A woman can't be truly honest with others if she's constantly lying to herself, if she avoids admitting her flaws, if she spins her failures into stories where she's always the victim, if she refuses to acknowledge her own role in problems, then the truth she offers others will always be incomplete. On the other hand, a woman who is willing to face her own weaknesses with honesty is far more likely to bring that same authenticity into her relationships. And this isn't just about morality. It's about stability. When someone has a consistent relationship with truth, you don't have to second guess their motives or their words. You know that what you see is what you get. There's no constant decoding, no wondering if there's a hidden angle or an unspoken story. That steadiness builds trust over time, and trust is the foundation for every meaningful connection. You can see her relationship with truth even in the smallest interactions. If she says, "I'll call you back in 5 minutes," does she actually call? If she tells a story about something that happened, are the details accurate, or do they keep changing each time she tells it? If she makes a commitment, does she follow through even when it's no longer exciting or convenient? These moments may seem minor, but they add up to a pattern. Ultimately, truth is not something you practice only when it's easy. It's a standard you hold yourself to, even when it costs you comfort, reputation, or short-term advantage. And a woman's relationship with truth tells you not only about her integrity, but also about her capacity for loyalty, trust, and respect in every area of life. If she treats truth as optional, you'll always be standing on unstable ground. But if she treats it as essential, you'll find in her a rare kind of reliability that becomes the anchor in both calm and storm. One of the most revealing aspects of a woman's character is found in how she speaks about others when they are not present. When someone is in the room, it's easy to show respect, to be courteous, to avoid saying things that might be hurtful or damaging. But when that person leaves, when there's no chance they'll hear the words being spoken, the true nature of someone's mindset and intentions becomes clear. This is because the absence of accountability removes the social mask. What remains is the unfiltered expression of how she truly sees people and the role she plays in either building them up or tearing them down. If you listen carefully, you can tell a great deal about her integrity by the way she describes others who aren't there to defend themselves. Does she default to criticism, picking apart someone's flaws, mocking their choices, or highlighting their failures? Or does she focus on their strengths, their potential, and their good qualities? The difference here is monumental because it speaks to the root of her intentions. Gossip, negativity, and constant judgment usually stem from insecurity, a desire to elevate oneself by lowering others. On the other hand, worth it up even in private, show a level of confidence and compassion that runs deep. It's not about pretending everyone is perfect or avoiding truth. Sometimes honest criticism is necessary, but even then the tone and purpose of her words matter. Does she speak about someone's shortcomings in a way that seeks solutions or understanding? Or does she use them as ammunition for entertainment or self-validation? A woman with strong character will address problems directly with the person involved rather than using their absence as an opportunity to undermine them. She understands that tearing someone down behind their back is the betrayal not only of that person's trust, but also of her own integrity. This behavior also reveals how she's like to speak about you when you're not around. If she casually shares others' personal business, you can assume yours will be treated the same way. If she frequently mocks or belittles people who have no idea it's happening, you should expect that same pattern to repeat. The habit of speaking negatively about others is rarely limited to certain individuals. It's a reflection of a deeper way of thinking and relating to the world. Pay attention to her choice of language. Words carry energy, and people who are committed to kindness will often filter their speech, not out of fear, but out of principle. Even when they disagree with someone, they'll phrase it in a way that doesn't dehumanize or humiliate. They're aware that their words can ripple beyond the moment, shaping the way others see and treat that person. A woman who values this understands that her influence is a responsibility, and she won't abuse it. The way she speaks about others in private is also a reflection of her empathy. If she can put herself in someone else's shoes, she's less likely to make them the target of ridicule or cruelty. She recognizes that everyone has struggles, flaws, and moments they wish they could do over. Instead of weaponizing those moments, she may use them to connect, to learn, or to extend grace. This ability to maintain respect for others even when they aren't present shows emotional maturity and an understanding of the humanity we all share. Another thing to watch for is how she speaks about people she disagrees with or doesn't personally like. It's one thing to compliment friends and allies, but it's another to maintain fairness and respect toward those she finds difficult. This is a true mark of character, treating someone's name with dignity even when there's no personal benefit in doing so. It's easy to let dislike turn into bitterness and bitterness into harmful speech, but someone with integrity refuses to let their words become a weapon just because they have the chance. And then there's the way she responds when others engage in gossip around her. Does she contribute eagerly, adding fuel to the fire, or does she redirect the conversation, change the subject, or defend the absent person? This is telling because it shows whether she's willing to stand by her principles when social pressure leans in the opposite direction. It takes courage to refuse gossip, especially when it's a bonding tool in certain circles. But that courage is part of what separates strong character from shallow performance. Over time, these private conversations form a pattern. You'll notice that women who value integrity speak in a way that's consistent, whether the person they're talking about is in the room or not. There's no sudden shift in tone, no dual personality that emerges depending on who's listening. This consistency builds trust because you don't have to wonder how she talks about you when you're gone. You've already seen how she talks about everyone else. Ultimately, the way she speaks about others behind their backs is a reflection of what's in her heart. Words are an outpouring of thought, and thoughts are shaped by beliefs, values, and emotional states. If her private words are full of compassion, fairness, and encouragement, it's because those qualities live in her. If they're sharp, judgmental, and demeaning, it's because those qualities live there too. And while it's possible for someone to change these patterns, it requires conscious effort, which is why paying attention to them early on is so important. One of the most revealing tests of character is how someone handles power and influence. And this applies profoundly when you're observing a woman. Power comes in many forms: money, beauty, social standing, professional authority, or even the ability to sway opinions in a group. It's not the possession of power that defines a person, but what they choose to do with it. Some use it as a tool to build others up, to open doors for people who might otherwise be over. Others use it as a weapon to control, exclude, or to make themselves feel superior. The moment a woman finds herself in a position of influence, whether large or small, you get a direct view into her true priorities and values. A woman who carries power with grace understands that influence is a responsibility, not a privilege to be exploited. She uses her voice to speak for those who aren't heard, her resources to help those who need a hand, and her presence to create space for others to shine. She doesn't feel threatened by sharing the spotlight because she's secure in her own worth. The recognition of her own value makes it possible for her to lift others without fearing that their rise will diminish her. In contrast, there are those who let power corrupt the way they see themselves and others. They begin to measure worth by titles, appearances, or social connections. They might only give attention to those they believe can benefit them. Their kindness becomes selective, reserved for those who can feed their influence or status. This shift often happens subtly, but it reveals an underlying fragility, a need for external validation to maintain a sense of self. The way a woman treats people once she has an advantage over them says more about her character than how she treated them before she had that advantage. Some remain grounded, treating everyone with the same respect they always did, regardless of changes in circumstance. Others allow their position to inflate their ego, creating a stance between themselves and those they consider beneath them. This isn't always intentional. Sometimes it's the slow result of being surrounded by praise, privilege, and opportunities that others don't have. But whether intentional or not, it's a sign that the weight of power has shifted her priorities. One of the clearest places you can see is in decision making. If she has the ability to make a choice that could benefit herself at the expense of others, what does she do? Does she take the bigger share, keep the best opportunity, or step aside so someone else can have their chance? Power always gives a person the option to be selfish without consequence, and what they choose in that moment speaks volumes about who they are. The same principle applies to beauty and social influence. In today's world, attractiveness and popularity can function as their own form of power, opening doors and shaping how people are treated. Some women use these qualities to create connection, to bring people together, and to encourage others to see their own worth. Others use them to create separation, to make people feel smaller, to hold themselves above others in subtle or obvious ways. The difference is not in the beauty or influence itself, but in the intention behind how it's wielded. Even in small social settings, you can watch for signs. Does she dominate conversations to ensure her voice is the loudest? Or does she invite others to share? When she's in the center of attention, does she acknowledge the contributions of others? Or does she take the credit quietly and move on? In moments where she has the authority to decide the direction of something, a meeting, a group project, a social event, does she take input from others? Or does she make chores without considering anyone else's perspective? How she handles praise is also telling. Some allow compliments and recognition to feed arrogance, subtly creating an who's versus them mentality. Others accept praise and humility, acknowledging the role of the people who helped them get there. Humility in the face of power is one of the clearest indicators of maturity because it shows she understands that power is fleeting and that her value doesn't depend on holding it over others. There's also the question of whether she is willing to use her influence to protect the vulnerable. It's easy to claim principles when they cost nothing, but when standing up for someone means risking her own comfort, reputation, or position, her actions reveal where her loyalty truly lies. A woman of strong character won't remain silent in the face of unfairness simply because speaking up is inconvenient. She sees her influence as something meant to be used for good, even when that good doesn't directly benefit her. Over time, power and influence reveal a pattern. You'll see whether she seeks opportunities to share them or hoard them, whether she uses them to connect or to divide, whether she treats them as gifts to be stewarded or as trophies to be displayed. These choices don't just reflect her approach to leadership or social standing. They reflect the foundation of her integrity. Because at its core, how someone handles power is not about the size of that power, but about the size of their character. Adversity is the ultimate truth teller of character. And how a woman responds when life presses her to the edge will tell you more about her than years of casual observation ever could. When the path is smooth, when everything is unfolding according to plan, it's easy to appear composed, optimistic, and gracious. But hardship has a way of stripping away the surface layers, exposing what's at the core. It doesn't create character, it exposes it. Pressure, loss, and uncertainty act like a spotlight, illuminating qualities that can remain hidden during times of comfort. When challenges arise, whether it's a personal loss, a betrayal, a financial setback, or a dream delay, some women crumble under the weight, letting bitterness and resentment take root. Others rise, not because the pain is any less real for them, but because they make a conscious choice to respond with resilience rather than surrender. This choice isn't made once, it's made over and over again in the small, quiet moments when no one is cheering them on and no one is watching. A woman of strong character sees adversity as a teacher, even when the lessons are difficult. She doesn't deny the pain, but she refuses to let it define her. She might cry, she might stumble, she might even question herself in the dark hours of the night, but she will not allow the hardship to strip her of her dignity or her values. She understands that the way she walks through fire matters just as much as emerging on the other side. Her response to adversity often reflects her inner discipline. In the face of chaos, does she panic and lash out? Or does she slow down and search for clarity? Does she look for solutions rather than dwelling endlessly on the problem? The ability to stay centered when everything feels unstable comes from deep self-awareness and emotional strength. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about refusing to let external storms dictate her internal world. One of the most telling aspects is how she treats others while she's under pressure. Some, when overwhelmed, become short-tempered, impatient, or dismissive. They allow stress to spill out in ways that damage relationships. But others, even in their lowest moments, remain mindful of how they affect the people around them. They know their pain is not a license to be cruel. They hold on to kindness even when kindness feels like the harder choice. That's not just strength, that's mastery over self. Adversity also reveals a woman's relationship with hope. Does she view setbacks as permanent or temporary? Does she believe that she is powerless in the face of difficulty? Or does she trust that she has the capacity to adapt, rebuild, and move forward? Hope isn't naive optimism. It's the steady belief that something worth fighting for still exists beyond the current struggle. A woman who holds on to hope in hard times is showing a rare kind of courage, because it's far easier to give in to despair than to keep believing when the evidence seems thin. The way she carries herself through difficulty also shows whether she's anchored in principles or swayed by circumstances. It's one thing to talk about values when life is comfortable. It's another to live by them when keeping them costs you something. In moments of hardship, shortcuts and compromises often present themselves. A woman of integrity will resist the temptation to abandon her principles for the sake of ease, even when it means enduring a longer, harder road. You can also see her adaptability in these moments. Life challenges rarely look like what we expect, and plans can fall apart without warning. Does she cling so tightly to her original plan that she breaks when it collapses? Or does she adjust her course and find new ways forward? Adaptability is not weakness. It's the ability to bend without breaking, to pivot without losing your sense of direction. A woman who adapts in adversity is one who understands that strength is as much about flexibility as it is about endurance. Another sign is her capacity to learn from hardship. Some go through trials and come out carrying only bitterness. Others extract wisdom, using the pain as fuel for growth. This doesn't mean she's grateful for the hardship itself, but she's willing to look for the lessons within it. Lessons about herself, about others, and about life. That willingness to learn, to become more refined rather than more rigid, is a mark of true resilience. And perhaps most importantly, adversity reveals that she becomes isolated or chooses connection. Hardship can make people withdraw, walling themselves off to avoid vulnerability. But some women understand that strength doesn't mean facing everything alone. They allow themselves to lean on others, to accept support, and to be honest about their struggles. That openness is a sign not of weakness, but of confidence in their own worth. They know they don't have to hide their humanity to be strong. Over time, these patterns become clear. You'll see if she consistently allows adversity to refine her instead of harden her, if she maintains compassion for others while navigating her own challenges, and if she holds on to her principles even when the easier choice is to abandon them. Because in the end, the storms of life will always come, but it's the way she walks through them that will tell you exactly who she is.